Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Friends of Sanctuary podcast. I'm Marianne Bartels, Chief Investment Strategist at Sanctuary Wealth. Today, I'm pleased to welcome our guest, Lauren Norris, founder and managing partner at Vincita Investment Partners. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us here in our New York office.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to talk about how you got into wealth management. But you didn't come through the traditional ranks, did you?
I did not.
So you were a lacrosse person. So I'm assuming you played lacrosse
I did.
in college, right?
I did.
And then you went on to become a coach.
Yes.
And then even a bigger coach. So I normally don't like to read from a card, but this is too long for me to memorize. So I'm going to read all of this. I don't want to embarrass you, but you should be so proud of yourself because you were a two-time All-American lacrosse player before serving as a college lacrosse coach at your alma mater. Mm-hmm. And you were the youngest head coach to win the NCAA National Championship in 2009. Wait, we're not done yet. You were named the IWLCA Division III Coach of the Year and the Lacrosse Magazine Women's Coach of the Year for all divisions. That's quite an incredible accomplishment. So how did you wind up in wealth management with that type of background?
Sure. I never thought I would be in wealth management. I thought I was going to be a college lacrosse coach for the rest of my life. And so thinking back to all of those accolades and accomplishments, it feels like a lifetime ago. That was a wonderful, wonderful time in my life. But there was actually something that happened a couple years after we won the national championship, which led me to kind of move on from Franklin and Marshall College, which is my alma mater, and take a new career path.
Okay, so that's what I want to go into.
Sure.
You had some hardships that you had to face. Would you mind talking to our audience about what that hardship was?
Sure. I actually recently got an opportunity to tell this story at Sanctuary's Oasis conference, which was incredible. So it's fresh in my mind.
I can honestly tell you it was very moving. I was there.
Well, thank you. So 4 years after we won the national championship, there had been a hazing inquiry from a parent of an ex-player. And from that, the school decided to fire the coaching staff, suspend the upperclassmen for the rest of the season. And, just in a moment, everything kind of disappeared.
So you went from being on top literally to being on the bottom.
Yeah, they say you do have the farthest to fall when you're on top, and you don't tend to fall a short distance at that point. So that was a really hard time in my life. And
you didn't do anything wrong.
No. I think that's most cases when you see something like that happen to people, there tends to be someone who's a scapegoat for, something that happens, because a lot of times people want there to be some sort of reaction so that the world knows that we're dealing with this problem and we're not taking things lightly. And here's what we've done. And it was actually really hard.
Especially being your alma mater too.
It was, because it wasn't just about losing a job. I mean, I think I was 30 years old. I didn't have a family yet. It wasn't about that. Like, oh, I have all these responsibilities and I need to figure something out. It was about the fact that I could never really go back to my alma mater again. I could never really have these positive feelings that I had about F&M. And when I took the job, I said in the interview, the only reason I want to do this is because I had the best 4 years of my life here, and I want to make sure everyone else who comes into this program has the best 4 years of their life. And now I couldn't even go back.
So in those dark days, because I'm assuming you've had some very dark days after that.
I did.
What kind of support system? How did you come out of that darkness?
It now seems like it happened quickly, but it was a very long period of time. And it was a lot of just great people around me that I had in my life and people I didn't even know yet.
Talk about your dad.
Both my parents are incredibly, incredibly important in my whole story. But my dad was the parent who would show up at the games And as when I was a player too, everybody knew who he was on campus. And then everybody still knew who he was when I came back to coach. But I had given him this F&M lacrosse hat, and he took it upon himself to embroider the words "Coach's Dad" across the back, so that when he showed up to games, he would stand up against the fence so everybody in the stands could see who he was.
That is such a touching story.
It's so cute, and everyone loved him. I could have gone into so many more stories about him, speaking at Oasis, and I'll tell you one more, but he would talk to all the kids after the game and he would say, "You played so great today." And it would be a kid that didn't even play. She'd be like, "I didn't even get in." And he was like, "But if you had, you would have been great." Like, that's how he would talk to every single player on my team. And they just all loved him.
And your mom, from what I hear, tries not to miss a game ever.
Oh, she was there in the stands trying to pretend she didn't know my dad. It was very embarrassing. But she's a more realistic supporter. She's kind of been a very grounding person in my life. So my dad was, from the day one, he'd be like, "Oh, you're a really good singer. You should go on American Idol." He was like, he would take it from here to here very quickly. And my mom would just kind of look at me and she'd be like, you are a very good singer. We should probably not go to that audition, but she was, and so her and I have a great relationship. And when I need the truth and I need to understand kind of where things really are in life, she is the person that I can count on for that.
So talk about some of the other people that showed up in your life that you
Sure.
didn't even know were there paying attention.
Yeah. So one of the people was a guy named Mike Pressler. He was the head lacrosse coach at Duke University, who had been kind of forced to resign amid a sexual assault scandal. And I think when I say it, everybody remembers the scandal. Everybody remembers who that is. But he reached out to me out of the blue. And I remember getting this phone call, and I didn't know who he was or why he was calling me. But I guess the spokesperson for Duke at the time was on the board of trustees at the college where I was fired. And he just felt like something was unfair, and he wanted to make sure that I had a support system and that I knew that everything was going to be okay.
And he really didn't do anything wrong either, did he?
No, he did not. And that all came out, a year later. But, in the midst, he kind of explained to me what I was about to be facing. And he was right. So he started talking about, he went back to his alma mater and asked them the job was open there for men's lacrosse, and it was Division III. It was well below where he had been coaching. And they wouldn't even meet him on campus. They met him in a parking lot of a gas station and told him that they couldn't hire him. And he ended up at Bryant University up in Rhode Island. They took a chance on him, and he was loyal to them for 20 years, and actually flew me up to Bryant University and had me interview for the women's job at the time, and just really helped me get over that first hurdle of interviews and showed me that it really wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be.
So tell me how you got back into lacrosse then, because you obviously got back in again.
I did. Everyone around me just told me I had to do it one more time, just try to coach one more college season and see if I still enjoyed it. And if I didn't, then I could, leave that career path behind on my own terms. And luckily, I actually had several job opportunities, and I took one at High Point University. And that's still why we live in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we moved down there and ended up loving it. My husband got a job at High Point as well. And
so your husband moved for you?
Yes.
Oh, what a beautiful thing.
And it was really very difficult because he was from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where we were currently living, and had moved there to be closer to his family. So for him to kind of up and leave again, it was just, he was the most supportive person.
I was going to say another great support system.
Yes. My husband, my friends, of course, the people you expect to be
Tell me
supportive.
about what your girlfriends did for you.
There's
a story that you told.
Yeah, they just showed up. I told them not to come, and they came and stayed with me for days, and made me laugh and let me cry, and they just hung out with me and made sure I wasn't alone.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So tell me what you're doing today, because you're really back. You're back, even still coaching another team now.
Yes. So actually, right after this happened, about 6 months after this happened, I got the opportunity to coach for the Israeli national team. And everyone always asks me, how in the world did you get this job? And I have to say, I don't think at the time there were a lot of women college lacrosse coaches that were Jewish. So there might have been 5. So it was a small pool of people they were choosing from. But luckily, I just got the opportunity, and one of the girls who was on my national championship team actually ended up being on all 3 of my world championship teams with Israel Lacrosse. Wow. So it's incredible.
Now, when we were talking privately at Oasis, what's the goal going forward? I think you're shooting for a goal.
Yes. So,
no pun intended by that word either.
I like it though. Lacrosse is one of the 5 sports, non-Olympic sports that they are allowing into the LA 2028 Olympics. And I learned a lot about how this process works, obviously, as we're leading up to this, but every host city gets to pick 5 sports just for that one Olympics. So this might be the only time lacrosse is ever in the Olympics. And so they created an adaptive style of play called sixes. So it's not even the traditional college game. It's a totally different game that's played on a smaller field. It's a shorter amount of time, less players. And they did that because, the goal is to make it as cheap as possible for, LA to host this sport. And so as of right now, they're only taking 6 countries. And so for the next, 3 years, we are really working towards becoming one of the 6 that gets into the Olympics.
You might be going to the Olympics.
Well, I will say, as this has gone, the year after year, I probably will not be the coach of that team if we make it. And that's just because I've been out of coaching really for so long. So I will be there in a big supportive role if we make it. They kind of call me the godmother of Israel Lacrosse, which is wonderful. That. And, but we would really hope to have just an all-star coach, someone who's still in the game, who's really doing it on a day-to-day basis.
I bet you a coach might need like a second coach maybe to show up.
Maybe I could be the assistant.
Yeah, at least to be present.
Absolutely.
That would be fun.
It would be.
So I'm sure you learned a lot of skills as a coach.
Yes.
So tell me then how you wound up in wealth management. We haven't even talked about. So you've done all this lacrosse. Yes. How did you transition into becoming an advisor, a financial advisor?
Yeah, this is actually a pretty funny story. So I knew I wanted to do something different. I was actually a math and business major in college. So I was like, I could probably do something.
So you're a brainiac too.
I'm trying. So I was just looking for something that was a little bit different, but I thought it would be cool to have like a training program. And so I had found out about the Bank of America, Merrill Lynch training program.
It's really the Merrill Lynch training program,
Merrill Lynch training program. And I applied to it, and they sent the first kind of email back saying, you've made it through the first round. You just have to take this, it's called a fiat test. You have to take this test. It's all about economics. And I had just had my daughter, Emma. So she's 2 days old. I'm holding her in my left arm and I'm taking this test.
You've got to be kidding me.
Oh yeah. I'm just like, it's a multiple choice.
Talk about a rock star.
So I'm taking this test. And I think 2 weeks after I had her, I had my first interview. I couldn't even button my pants. I had one suit. I was a college coach. We don't wear nice clothes. So I couldn't button my pants. I was trying to find a shirt that I could put over so that I could fit in this interview, this suit, so I could go interview at Merrill Lynch. And so,
well, obviously you got hired.
Well, it was interesting. I do this for clients too. When clients choose to work with me, I always ask them why they chose me. And so when I got hired at Merrill, I said, why did you choose me? I don't have any experience in this. And they said, being an advisor is all about working with people who need to trust you. And money is a very important factor in their lives. But there's one thing that people care about more than their money, and that's their kids. And you've already proven that you have a track record of working with people who trust you with their kids. Because when you send your kids to college, you have a daughter in college. You want to know that there are people that are looking after your daughter, right? And so that's what I did. I was a mother to 32 other kids while they were away from their homes.
I would have never thought of that. And whoever told you that, I'm impressed with that
I
because
know.
it's really true.
It is.
Trust is probably one of the most important factors when they're even screening a whole population.
Yep.
They need to trust the person because they're entrusting their whole future, basically their financial future to you.
Yeah. And I don't take that lightly. And I think that shows when I work with clients today. But so that's how I got into it. I said, okay, I'll try this. And the rest is history.
So tell me about some of the people, like, did you work on a team? Did you work independently?
Yeah. So I started in what they call the TFA program. So I was hired as a team advisor onto a team. And my first partner, who I respect immensely, I worked with for the first 4 years, and he did a great job of really teaching me the ins and outs of the industry. And we worked together very well. He really was more investment focused. I was more planning focused. So we kind of had the approach to be in all meetings together. And he gave me great advice. And he was the one that kind of said that to me about, the trust. But he gave me great advice. He said, I don't want you to ever have to rely on anyone else. So we're going to set your goals really high. You're going to bring in $10 million a year, every year. And if you don't do that, then you personally know you're not on track to be successful in this industry. I said, okay. And so he set the goal.
That didn't scare you?
Yeah. Mm-mm. So he said it and I did it. And I was probably one of the only people in that training program.
Well, there's not a high success rate in that training. There's not, because the bars are very high.
They are high. But he basically said, you could skimp by only doing this, but if you really want to be successful and you really want to have your own practice, this is what you need to do.
So you were at Merrill Lynch. Obviously, you became successful at Merrill Lynch, and that's called a wirehouse.
It is.
But eventually you decided to go independent.
Yeah.
Tell us about that story.
Sure. So I'll just backtrack a tiny bit. That first partner who I worked with decided to leave. He left 4 years after I was there, and I had the opportunity to join a much bigger team in Greensboro, North Carolina. And there's 13 of us on the team. So it was 5 advisors and 8 support staff, and we spanned across 2 different states. So we had half the team was in Florida and half the team was in North Carolina. And I loved working with them. It was an absolutely tremendous experience. And I think you get to a place where you start talking about, do we want to be here for the rest of our lives? Do we want to go to another wirehouse for the rest of our lives? Do we want to start our own firm? And we all had differing views on that. But my current partner, JJ, he and I really were thinking more alike than the rest of them. And he was really the person that brought me onto that team and cared for me, like took me under his wing and showed me that I didn't need to be kind of like a support advisor that only did planning. He showed me how to do everything and said, you can do this.
You've had great mentors.
He is a wonderful mentor. Yes. And so he and I really talked more about what would this look like if we could do this our own way for the rest of our lives. And luckily we're young. I still think we're young. And we have
I think you're
20
young.
plus years in us still. So when we think about the rest of our lives, it really didn't feel like anything was off the table. And we actually hired an independent kind of person. I don't know what they call themselves, a consultant, I think, to tell us all the different things we could do. So from another wirehouse down to everything ourselves. And that's how we found Sanctuary. So through him. And once we started talking with Sanctuary, it was clear right away that it was a very compatible situation. A lot of people came from Merrill. They understood the lingo. They understood how we'd been running our practice, and they could really talk to us about how things could be different and more flexible, and you have more freedom. And it's funny, I think about this all the time. When someone says you have the freedom to choose whatever you want, that they mean it in a positive way. Like, this is exciting. And you know how people hear that? That's terrifying. I don't want to choose whatever I want. I can barely read the menu tonight at dinner and choose what I want. Just put like 3 things in front of me, and then I'll tell you which one of those 3 I want to do. And I think Sanctuary does that really well. So if we found something else that we wanted to implement within our practice that Sanctuary didn't already have, they would be like, great, send it to us. We'll do the due diligence. But in the meantime, you've already done the due diligence to say, here's the best technology for planning. Here's the best custodians. And you put them in front of us, and it's not overwhelming. But at the same time, it's so much better, not just for us, but mostly for our clients. It's been really fun figuring out, which things make the most sense for us, because how we want to run our practice is different from every other partner firm that's with Sanctuary. So we get to choose exactly what we want to do, not just what you think we should do.
And being independent at Sanctuary means you own your business. Not all RIAs truly own their business, but here at Sanctuary, you own your business. What is it like to be a business owner?
I actually didn't think I cared about being a business owner. And then now that we've been doing it for about 1.5 years, I love it. What it means to own our own business, JJ always talks about this. He's like, I love putting the key in the door. So even when I get there before him, I just leave it locked because I know he likes to do it. So I'm just kidding. I just forget to unlock it. But he is, we talk about this all the time. We have such a pride in what we're doing every day. There's so much pride in how we get to work with our clients, how we get to work with our staff. And we love that we get to help not just our clients, but the people that work with us every day. We are so excited to do things for them and make their lives better and learn about their families and how the work environment we're creating is allowing them to do things they couldn't do where they were before.
That's amazing, because I'm sure you have clients that come in and say, we'd like to do this. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can't do those things in a regulated big environment, but maybe you can figure it out in an independent environment.
I will say, I remember when we were at Merrill, just the reports, they're very confusing, right? There's a lot of numbers. You look down and you and I, because we work with them every day, makes perfect sense to us, right? Whether it's the performance reporting or the planning reporting, you look at a cash flow statement, it is just a whole page of numbers. And our clients would say this, I have absolutely no idea what you're showing me, but I trust you. And yes, that's wonderful to hear that you trust me, but I don't want to be showing you something that you don't understand. And now I can create reporting that is visually pleasing. It makes sense. I can talk to you about things in a way where you do understand, and I can educate you very simply on what it is that we're doing and how we are being effective advisors for you, so that when you go tell someone else that they should work with us, you can articulate why, not just, I trust them. You should trust them.
Trust is important, but it's also important for people to understand.
Absolutely.
Which is why I love doing these podcasts to help to educate people. So let's go back to the things that you learned probably playing lacrosse, being a player, being a coach, and how you take some of those skill sets and apply that while you're working with your clients.
I mean, even back as far as I can remember, I played a lot of different sports, and some I was really good at and some I was really bad at. And I think being on a team and having different roles on different teams is very important, because sometimes you learn that you need to be the leader and that you're good at being the leader, and other people should probably do things the way you're doing them. Other times you should sit back and say, you're not the best in this situation. Let somebody else shine. And that's okay. And I think it's important to kind of understand those roles.
Working together.
It's important. I would say the biggest thing I learned, though, from coaching is that no matter what the plan is, it doesn't matter. There's 10 different ways to get from here to here. And whatever the plan is that we choose, we need to have buy-in, and we need everybody to be on the same page and be excited about doing it, and then we'll be successful. So.
Okay, so I'm going by memory. Yep. So I'm winging this one.
Good.
If I recall, you had a different style of coaching.
I do have a very different style of coaching.
So when you went into coach, you had to kind of turn the tables upside down.
I did. Actually, that first year, we had the same coach. So my college coach was their college coach. And so she left to go to Yale to be the coach there. And so when I stepped in, I already knew what they were doing, like how they were playing, and they were bored. It was a very structured system. So you went from this play to this play to this play, and you could only be in this spot. You could only be in this spot. You're going to do the same thing every time. And it was really limiting because they were all so talented. And I wanted to show them how talented they were, but I needed them to trust me that it would be okay, that they could branch out of these roles and they could try something different. And just because this person was a leading scorer last year doesn't mean they're going to be the star this year. And so we started to kind of do the style of play called freelance, which is you literally do whatever you want. So there's a couple rules on like, basic rules of like, if you pass the ball, you move away and, little things like that. But from there, they started to understand how people liked to move and where they liked to go and what they were good at.
They probably found out more about themselves as players.
And what we did was really shift the decision making from the sidelines to the field. And so my hope is that what they were able to take from that wasn't just the win, because winning's fun, but winning's more fun when you have a huge part in it and you're doing it with a group of people who you love and you have really put your heart and soul into it to get from, point A to point B. And so I don't know. Winning's fine, but I think winning looks different for everyone and we need to define that for everyone. And that's kind of fun when you're working with different clients.
So what I actually took from you out of all of that is you created flexibility.
Yep.
And by going independent, you have more flexibility.
It's true.
That flexibility is an important ingredient to succeed.
It is. It is. And don't get me wrong, my team always tells me our processes and procedures are what help us, be able to do those things. But my favorite thing is when every day is different. I show up and just something out of the blue happens and I get to do something I didn't think I was going to get to do that day.
That's awesome. All right, let's come back to the industry a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about the great wealth transfer that's going to happen. Yes. And by the end of this decade, women are going to control $30 trillion. Yes. I think we do a lot of talking about it. I'm not sure people are ready for it, to be quite honest, in how our industry is structured. Mm-hmm. Right? The average financial advisor is 55 years old, happens to be white and male. Sure. It doesn't mean that some women don't want to work with a male advisor, but I'm sure there are some women that would prefer to work with women, and we don't have enough women in the industry.
Yep.
Talk to me how you're looking at this and talk about how can we encourage women to understand that this is a great business for them to be in, where they really can have flexibility and succeed.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's for a long time, this industry has been seen as male dominated, maybe a little bit competitive. It didn't seem like an atmosphere where people could come and have a family or have the flexibility in their lifestyle. But that's not true anymore, because I think it's really shifted from an advisor's day-to-day is shifted from picking up the phone and buy
cold
this, buy
cold
this, sell
calling
this,
and doing
right.
the buying and selling.
And it's shifted to much more relationship-based and advising people on day-to-day issues. And I can't tell you, I have zero conversations about investments. Zero.
Because it's all planned out.
Yes.
And it's structured for their goals.
They call me, and when someone calls me, it's, can I do this? Do we have enough money to do this? What's the best way to finance this? It's all about, they're all planning questions and how can I achieve the goals that I want to achieve? And I think any woman who is thinking about what career they should be in, if you like talking to people and you like helping people with their problems, this is the best industry in the world.
And what's interesting, a lot of young people don't believe that this industry helps people. They see the dark side of our business. Sure. But in the wealth management division, you really are helping people. You're helping people save, and how do they buy a home? Maybe even pay down, how do I pay down school debt? How do I buy a house? How do I start saving for college if they have children? Or I want to take this vacation in 5 years. Right? I'm sure you get all of this, right?
All of it.
Or I've bought this great home, but I don't like the kitchen or I don't like the bathrooms. And those construction costs can add up over time. But you have to make sure that that's all planned out in the portfolios.
You do. And I think the biggest thing that everyone worries about, and especially women, is I don't want to run out of money.
That's a big one.
Or who's
And
going to
we live
take care
longer.
of me when I'm this old, or my husband passes, or my kids don't live nearby. And I would say people, honestly, I think truly people pay me for a peace of mind to let them know that everything's going to be okay.
What I can tell you is I do have some friends that did not plan. And it's really hard to see how hard their life has become. And these are good people, they're smart people, but they just didn't plan appropriately and they're struggling. And they may have another 20 or 30 years and they're like, I'm going to have to work for the rest of my life. I don't have enough money.
That's hard.
So you're really doing a great service and you really are helping people. For anyone that is thinking about coming into this industry, we really do help people. Wow, we've been talking about so much. I've already talked about all of these type of questions. One of the questions I like to ask is, what haven't we talked about that you think is important to discuss, whether it's in the industry, whether it's about women,
I think
I didn't even ask, what is it like to be a mother and a business owner, right? That's, can women have it all? I've always said no. There's always something that's a little out of balance. It's very hard to have perfect balance. Part of my solution was you write a lot of checks. I don't clean the house. I have a housekeeper. Maybe I'll have a gardener, right? Right. You can't do everything, but how do you find balance? What piece of advice maybe can you give young women?
I don't think you can have it all either. I think there's times where my daughter probably thinks I'm a great mom, and then there's times where everyone thinks I'm doing great as their advisor.
How
and then
old
there's
is
times
she
I'm
now?
a great business owner. She's 11.
Oh,
and
boy.
she'll straight up tell me if I'm not doing a good job. So,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And she's not even a teenager yet.
I know. I coach her middle school lacrosse team, and one day on the ride home, she said, you just didn't do a great job today. And I was like, what?
So how does that work? Mom, daughter, coach, that's an interesting balance.
It is interesting. I'm harder on her than I am on the other kids. I know that she can do more because I know her better. So I expect more from her. The other kids, I'm just getting to know.
So this you bring up something interesting. Harder because she can do better. I've always believed, and this is from watching medical shows, binge watching some medical shows when you're a resident and, you're barely eating and sleeping.
Right.
And if you're actually really good, the head doctors are harder on you.
Yep.
To bring out your talent.
Absolutely.
So how do you work in business? How do you bring the best skills out of your workers?
That's a great question. So we actually, right after Oasis, had Lori Burkhart came and we did a whole practice management, 3 days, really intense to kind of pull out, what it is everybody's looking for. Like they want a little bit more of this, or, they want to change some of their roles, and all of this stuff. And I will say that part has been harder because you start this business and you move all your clients over and you're just kind of getting your feet back under you. And so now I think we're really getting into that portion. It's not my coaching style. My coaching style is not making someone individually better at their job. My coaching style is taking a group of people of what we have and we'll be successful together. And so I'm not as good as bringing out the individual talent in people. I'm very good at putting us all in roles where together we can be successful. So I'm going to rely on my partner, JJ, to do that.
See, but that's great that you have balance on the team and that you know your skill set and what you can do and what you can't do. I think young people are just learning that. My aunt that trained me, that I often talk about, Aunt Bernadette, she used to always tell me, Marianne, when you're in your 20s, you're trying to figure out who you are. Yep. In your 30s, you're starting to figure out and start focusing and building a career. By your 40s, you're in your stride. I'm not going to tell you what I said by the time you're 50, but basically, I rule the roost at 50. I'll tell you yes, no, if I like it or if I don't. So we're coming close to the end. So what haven't we talked about? Is there anything we haven't talked about? Whether, again, whether it's in the industry, whether it's in coaching, whether it's in mentoring, if you want to leave anything for young people out there, thinking about, even though we talked about it, coming into this industry. Yep. Again, it's a wonderful industry. I find it to be a wonderful industry.
I do too. I actually had some great mentors that were women, actually, through my time, the last 12 years, kind of getting me from knowing nothing about this industry to where I am today. And I will say that was very helpful because it is a male-dominated field, which I was used to working in because coaching is a male-dominated field. And even women's sports, mostly coached by men. And so I had some key people who walked me through kind of what to expect, where I should focus my time and energy, how I could differentiate myself as an advisor, being a female. I also had a market exec who got all of he felt the most talented female advisors together across, 7 complexes. And we all developed great friendships, and we would talk, run things by each other. We would have monthly check-ins, things like that. So
forming a women's organization, which we just did at Sanctuary, Empower Her. We just had our first annual conference.
So fun.
So it's really about supporting one another, finding a group and finding a support system.
Yep. And so I think it is important because even I remember going out to lunch with my partners, and some of them are talking about, their wives who are stay-at-home moms and how hard their life is. They're like, I'm doing what both of you guys are doing. This is crazy. Like, I'm doing all the stuff for my kid, and and my husband's working. So it was kind of hard to relate to sometimes. So it's really important to find a group of women who you can talk to about those things, because we'll never have it all, but we can have a lot.
Oh, we can tremendously. Even my aunt told me. So I went into the business in 1985. Wow. And my aunt told me, she says, Marianne, it's a great business. She said, you can make good money. She said, now it's changed now, but at the time, she said, you're never going to make as much as the men do. That was the mentality. Sure. She says, but you're going to make more than most industries you can go into. Wow. And that was absolutely 100% correct. Yep. Thank God that wage gap is narrowing, and now we can be business owners, which you really didn't see back in 1985.
So, and here's the thing, I love women empowerment and all of this, but I have found with the partner firms at Sanctuary, everyone I meet is amazing and gives great advice, and the partnerships are incredible. And I met someone at Oasis a couple of weeks ago, and he and I stayed in touch, and he told me something the other day that was actually pretty inspiring for me, which was, you don't have to do what all these other firms are doing. It's your firm. Create your own vision. Make this whatever you want it to be. Just because we're giving out awards for this, that, or the other thing, that might not be what you need to be doing right now. And I think for women in the industry, I always laughed because I made no money as a coach. And so when I saw what people were making, as advisors, it's like, how much money do you need? I don't need any more money. So do I need to keep doing more and more and more? No, I can shift my focus to how can I do things better for the people I'm taking care of. And that might just be where I need to be right now. And that's okay.
Wow. What a beautiful way to end this podcast. This really, Lauren, has been such an inspiring conversation. I can't thank you enough for being here.
I was incredibly honored to be asked. In fact, I thought it was a mass email that went out, and then you were like, no, we asked you. So very humbled and incredibly honored. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in as well.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Friends of Sanctuary podcast. Tune in next month to be sure not to miss out on the next installment of the series.
Securities offered through Sanctuary Securities, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through the SEC Registered Investment Advisors, Sanctuary Advisors LLC, and True Independence. Sanctuary Wealth consists of the wholly owned subsidiaries. Sanctuary Advisors LLC, Sanctuary Securities Inc., and True Independence, as well as Sanctuary Alternative Holdings, Sanctuary Asset Management, Sanctuary Insurance Solutions, Sanctuary Global, and Sanctuary Global Family Office.